Hello and welcome, friends, neighbors, countrymen and women, to the Intangibles. Matt, how are you doing this day?
I'm doing great. I'm very excited to be here to talk about the Intangibles.
I think that's where I want to start. It's like the Untouchables in some ways. In some ways, it's not like the Untouchables at all. We are the Intangibles. We exhibit the Intangibles. This whole show, I don't know if you agree with this. This whole show started as a joke between you and me. Would you agree with that?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, this stems from us playing competitive games together and literally trying to find ways to credit ourselves for victories when the game wouldn't find a way to credit us.
Yeah. And specifically, this was born out of Overwatch, which we're still playing and still addicted to. Yeah, we play Overwatch. You get to the end of the game, you get the victory screen, and it doesn't give you the credit that you feel like you deserve.
Right. So this is an attempt to
Justify.
talk about to talk about those little things that you and I do in the game to set us apart from the pack.
Sure. Well, in Overwatch, it's a team-based game, which you and I it's a paradox. I think you and I both like team-based competitive play, obviously. Mm-hmm. You love Overwatch, as do I. I love League of Legends. I love team-based competitive play. And it's also the goddamn devil, because you have to rely on random jackasses. But then you have the additional problem, which is what this show was born out of, where you're playing the game, you feel like you're doing the thing, you're doing it, and then at the end of the game you get no credit for it, the game doesn't recognize, and now it's like there's a cognitive dissonance thing going on where you have to justify what you did in the game as well. It's weird because this podcast is born out of a joke, but I actually think it's true. It is true that there are intangibles.
100%. I mean, you and I have watched, and I think I've watched more pro play, Overwatch League play, and there is a lot more to what those players are doing than the statistics that the game presents you. And that's a huge discussion point I see all the time with new players is I'm getting gold medals, I've got gold damage, I've got gold healing. What can I possibly do more to win these games? And there truly are specific things that you can improve in your gameplay that are not going to be shown in stats, which is partially what this is about, and partially a way for us to again justify that we deserve to be winning these games when maybe we're not doing as well as we are.
And to justify just talking about games.
Yeah,
like you
absolutely.
Look at Overwatch, like you can play Mercy and you can pop off and have gold healing. That really doesn't tell you anything about how impactful you were in the game, or if you really helped your team achieve victory, or if you were a problem. You will kind of by default do the most healing.
Yep, 100%. Yeah, and that's kind of I don't want to call it a symptom, but a result of role queue too, right? You're limited to being one of two people in the same role on your team, so chances are you're going to have a medal of some sort if you're doing some amount of your job. But what does that actually mean as far as how you performed in the game? Well, it takes a lot more review and thought to really figure that out.
It really is intangible, if I had to put it in one word.
Yep, exactly.
So diving into what this show is about, we want to talk about games. We want to talk about the games we're playing, games we played once upon a time. But all of it, we want to have a focus on the intangibles, a focus on the things, the elements, the properties of the game that are beyond what you can quantify. Whether that be reminiscing about some previous game that we used to play, or thinking about a game that we're currently playing and how to improve at it, or thinking about how to take something that you're doing in a game and applying it to your life. How you take those intangibles and apply it more broadly into your worldview. So I think without further ado, we should just try to get into some segments here. What do you think?
Yeah, that sounds fantastic.
All right, segment number 1, play of the game.
Poke chat, poke chat, poke chat, poke chat.
In the play of the game, we will nominate someone, something, or it could be literally anything that we want to give credit to that week as the play of the game, the greatest play in the world, in the game. And ultimately, we have a higher ambition of throwing it to our listeners to A, throw out submissions as well, and B, vote on what is actually the play of the game. But for right now, it's just you and me. So let's start with you, Matt. What is your nomination for play of the game this week?
All right. So the person that I am nominating this week for play of the game in true intangible fashion is myself. And this is a situation that you will be very familiar with. We laughed about this a lot last weekend. So we were playing Overwatch, as we were just talking about prior to this, and the particular map style we were playing is called King of the Hill, so it's best out of 3 points, basically. We got Lijiang Tower, which is kind of a meme in general.
We don't lose on Lijiang.
Exactly, you never lose on Lijiang. For our listeners out there who are familiar with Overwatch, I stole that from Yeetle, and I say it every time I play. So that was our mantra going in, and I think we had Night Garden for the first point, and
we did.
I was a tank. You were a support. You were playing Lucio. I think I was playing Sigma, and we were losing pretty rough on the first point. I think it was like 65% or more on the opposing team. We had not taken the point at all, and we
were fighting on the point.
Yeah, I wasn't. I was coming back from spawn at this point.
Yeah, I mean that sounds about right.
Yeah, being the true masterful tank player that I am, I just recently died. And, I'm looking at the screen at our support. You're Lucio, and I think we had a Zen as our second support. So I say, Kenny, we've got pretty low healing capability here. Do you mind switching off to somebody with some higher healing output? And what this caused was just the fury within Kenny to be released. And immediately, that team fight that's going on without me, I have nothing to do with it, starts to go our way. We win it. We never lose the point after that. We don't lose the second point. We end up taking the whole thing.
100-0.
That's right. So why do I get to play the game here? Because I knew that you needed that little push, that little bit of toxicity in your game to get you to put your hard carry pants on, and you took us to victory. So that's an intangible. You're never going to see that on the board, and that's why I'm nominating it today.
Very nice. Yeah, you triggered me to go Super Saiyan, essentially. So I think you literally said that, and I, 2 seconds later, booped 2 people off the edge.
Yeah, it was literally... that was almost the play of the game, I think, even. It was another play from the same
That
point.
Was the play of the game.
So...
literally, if they could have played the audio 2 seconds before I got play of the game, it would have been Matt saying, you need to switch off of Lucio. Right before I got play of the game as Lucio.
I need more heals while I go in and feed. Can you switch off?
So you were the... Okay, just to get this straight, you were the stereotypical tank, respawned, running back into the point saying, I need healing.
Yep, basically. But instead of spamming that to my team, I was talking to my brother, which I guess
just
makes
to
it
me.
a little bit better. Yeah, I don't know.
Well, you know what? I respect that. And to honor that, I want to also begin our play of the game nominations by nominating myself for play of the game. This is not for Overwatch. This is for Magic the Gathering. I have not played official, sanctioned, any capacity ranked draft play in Magic in 10 years. Literally 10 years. Avacyn Restored, the pre-release, I think, was the last time I played Magic the Gathering. And I dove back in this past week into MTG Arena for the first time, playing some Kaldheim Limited. And the first Premier draft I played, I went 7-1, got my 7 wins, got the maximum reward. And I was just I was fully ready, completely ready to feed my ass off, just get my ass beat the entire time. And the fact that I went through and won, it felt so validating. It felt so good because I listen to MTG content constantly. I have a separate MTG podcast where I think about it and talk about it all the time, but I haven't played official MTG in so long. So to dive back in and apply the lessons and get the win felt so good. The intangibles there for me was all of the background studying that went into this, of listening to podcasts, looking at the cards, doing my own evaluation of the set, and then having it pay off. It just felt so good. And now I've ranked up to gold, and I have just hit a wall. I've lost 6 straight games, 2 drafts in a row, but that one shining moment when I first logged in, it just stands out to me. So I nominate myself for play of the game.
I love it. It's incredible. I think just in general there, like you're talking about the intangibles of all that background work you've done. I mean, that's going to be something we talk about in the other games that especially Overwatch for me. There's so much info out there from people that you can gather and can make you better at the game. And if you don't seek it out, you're just going to miss out on that. So kudos to you.
So I would like to, for this first inaugural edition, I think the only right thing to do is to give you the play of the game this week for motivating me to carry your ass to victory. So Matt, I think Matt gets play of the game. Congratulations. The very first episode. Round of applause, everybody.
I'll shake my fists up over my shoulders like they do in cartoons or whatever.
Hopefully in the future we can have some listeners who will nominate me every once in a while, but I will give it to you on this first go around. If nothing else, because it makes me look great because I won that game for us.
Yeah, it's absolutely true.
All right, let's move on. This week, our second segment is the FAQ.
Question.
The frequently asked questions. And in this segment, we will sometimes be looking at questions online, like from Reddit. Sometimes, hopefully in the future, again, we'll be getting questions from you, the listener. But this week we have a question that you found, Matt, correct?
Yeah, it's a version of a question that I see pretty frequently. And essentially it is, where I just picked up Overwatch, where do I begin? And a lot of people, that question even just starts with, who do I play? Because if you look at the hero pool, I don't know how many there are in there, but it's a ton.
Like
it's kind
40.
of overwhelming. Yeah. And they all have different kits. And so it is daunting to figure out where you start, especially in a game that's a team-based game that you then have to figure out how to just play the game in general outside of your character.
Right. A team-based game where you're picking a character that has its own unique abilities, and every character has its own unique abilities. What do you do?
Right. So, I guess from my perspective, there's a...
Yeah, where do you start?
Yeah, so like the very first thing that I think of when I think of this question is that remember throughout your time that it is still a game no matter what. I think whenever we first started playing the game, the very first Saturday we played this game, we were playing for 5 hours straight or something, just sitting on the couch and playing. And it is a ton of fun. And just like any game, as you start to get better and as you start to play more, you start to expect more out of yourself. You start to get more frustrated with it. And it can become something that is not as fun as it used to be because of that. So always, if you're getting tilted, if you're not having a good time, take a step back. It is a game. You're supposed to be having a good time. And if you're not, then that's a problem.
Sure. That being said...
No, that being
if you want to actually improve your win rate...
The second thing, Overwatch gives you 25 levels to develop your skills and your game sense before you can even touch competitive. Honestly, it's probably not enough, and I think they're going to change it moving forward when they go into Overwatch 2. But use that time and use more time if you need to understand the game, how it works, how the different game modes works, how you work with your team to get to get wins.
What the game is.
Yeah, that's going to set you up so much better when you turn to competitive because, your initial ranking in competitive is based on 5 placement matches per role. And if you're not ready for it and you go in, you're going to get ranked at, 500 bronze or whatever, which is fine, but you're just going to have so much farther to climb at that point than if you, really got the game down a little bit more and started. So that would be my suggestion to people is don't jump into competitive right away necessarily. Try to get a feel for a character or two in the group that you want to play and really feel like you have a good sense of them before you jump into that.
Well, and presumably if you want to climb in ranked, you don't want to just dive in head first, headlong, and not know what you're doing. So it just pays to feel the landscape a little bit.
Yep, 100%. The other basic tidbit is... And I don't have a ton of experience in other first-person shooter games outside of Overwatch, but Overwatch, from what I have learned online, is so much more of a team game than almost any of those other first-person shooters. You really can't solo carry your team, especially as you get into a rank where you're actually supposed to be. You have to coordinate with your teammates in some way in order to secure kills, in order to win team fights, and in order to just win the game. So if you go in there with the mindset of I'm doing my own thing with nothing else from anybody else, you're probably going to have a bad time.
There's going to be a ceiling. That will carry you so far, and then you will just hit a ceiling. You will not be able to get past that point.
100%. So after that point, I basically have some characters to start with that I think would be good per role. Yes.
I just wanted to interject here before we get into our actual, real, honest recommendations of specific champions that we think are good. I think very similar to what you're saying, you're going to be playing this originally, and the first, it's like jumping into any new competitive game. That's the most fun time that you have because it's just raw exploration. And so what I think you should do is just, when you start, play whatever you think looks cool. Just pick a champ that looks badass to you and see what the experience is like. I remember that first time you and I played Overwatch, you played Genji, which I don't think you've touched since that first weekend, basically.
I suck so much at Genji. It's insane. But yeah, I literally played him for like 5 hours straight. And
you know why you played him? Because he's a fucking cyborg ninja with a katana.
Yeah.
What's not to like about that? So I think in the same way that when you jump into a new fighting game, when you jump into Smash Brothers, just play the champ that looks fun to you. Play the champ that looks cool to you. I think that's the best starting point because you might make a connection with a champion that just resonates so hard with you, and that will be the thing that carries you. This was not the first champ I played, and I don't recommend it if you're a new player in Overwatch. But Doomfist, I love diving into Doomfist and playing a ton of games and trying to I have a connection with this hero, with this champ, and learning the intricacies of it. It's a special thing. So I think my number one recommendation is start with whatever you think looks cool, and then go from there. But if you want something more concrete, we do have specific suggestions. So Matt, what's your first?
I love that point also ties into the very first thing that I said is have fun, right? Have fun.
Yeah,
play something
course.
that looks fun. It's absolutely true. It'll make the game more enjoyable for you. Yeah, don't necessarily have to think too hard about it up front. Characters that I would suggest learning. I've got this kind of divided by role because we're in a role lock situation now where we weren't when you and I first picked up the game.
You have to choose support, tank, or damage.
Correct. And I guess we should probably go over the roles really quick and brief just so people kind of understand. They're kind of self-explanatory, but tanks are a lot of the times going to be your front lines. They're big, beefy characters. They're able to take more damage, kind of soak it up, and enable the rest of the team to get some more space and keep pushing forward. Your support line is going to be your healers. A big thing in Overwatch in general is that your supports are not just healers, though. Parts of their kits are much more interesting and can enable attacks and enable securing kills, basically. So that role is kind of a double thing where you're trying to keep your team alive and then also help them secure those kills.
You're an enabler in some capacity. You're increasing damage, you're shielding champions, you're increasing their damage output, you're increasing their capacity to do things.
100%. And then there's the damage roll, which is kind of, again, self-explanatory. You got more squishy champs for the most part, but high damage output. They're the ones who are really trying to secure those kills that the support are helping with and the tanks are making opportunities for.
Yep.
So generally speaking, those are the roles. I'm going to start with tank, and
okay.
I think
Sounds
I'll
good.
talk about the suggestions I have, and then you can talk about the suggestions you have.
I have one tank suggestion if you're
Perfect.
just starting.
Beautiful. Tanks is tough, honestly. The way the game's been defined over the years, they've got this whole main tank, off tank thing. There's weird synergies everybody talks about, and none of that matters. None of that
I'm making
matters.
a jerk off motion right now.
Exactly. None of that matters, especially at this stage in the game if you're just picking it up. The difference in those is just it's weird. It's difficult to explain. It kind of varies by the off tanks you're dealing with. But in general, again, tanks are there to make space. So I'm going to talk about the two biggest ones in the game, in my opinion, which are Reinhardt and Winston. So Reinhardt and Winston would be considered main tanks by the game. they're, again, big beefy boys with huge differences. So Reinhardt is big rectangle guy. He's got a giant shield. It's got 1400 health. He can hold it in front of himself and a bunch of his team to give him some cover. And he's got a giant hammer that he just swings in melee and pummels people with. Super simple champ. His kit is really not complicated, but he
you can in fact ignore one of his abilities just fully.
And you mostly should. We're talking about the charge right now because there's a charge where he literally can pin you, but
he just charges across the entire map in mostly a straight line.
Yep, you can kind of direct it, but it's really wonky. It's really wonky how it picks people up in its path too. And the biggest problem with it, I mean, at low ranks especially, is like you said, you charge across the map, you're not with the team anymore, and now they don't have a tank to help them out. So, but regardless, it's a very simple kit. You're a melee guy, you're playing close with your team, you're a big target for heals, and it gives you a good sense of the different game modes, and your team can really play around you, can being the key word, because it just doesn't always happen.
I would say also right now, given the way the game is currently configured, Ryan is like the only real shield champ left in the game.
Yeah,
the way Overwatch used to work, shields were a huge component. All the tanks had interesting shields. Shields are still a thing, but Reinhardt is the only one where you can really just hold up a shield all the time and protect your team.
Yeah, I can't remember what Sigma's shield is, but I think it's like 700 or 900 versus the 1400 on Ryan. So, and that's the next largest shield, I believe. I don't think Arista's. I think Arista's is even smaller.
It's not comparable.
No, and that was actually a good quality of life change in the game, honestly, that they made. But we'll probably get into that in a different episode.
Sure. Reinhardt is that's why Reinhardt is a good starting champ, is because you have a huge health pool and a huge shield pool. It's a huge area that you can protect your entire team. It's not very complicated.
Nope. And again, you can learn the different game modes. You can kind of learn how he plays in those modes and those maps. And it'll give you a good sense of the game. And the thing too about Reinhardt, he's literally played from bronze to the top 500
pro level.
He is used everywhere. He's never not been used in a single competitive season. So you will be guaranteed to be okay with your team if you're playing Reinhardt.
He's a cool character. Like the developers want Reinhardt to be in the game at every level, so you don't have to worry about will he fall out of the meta. No, he's been in the meta the entire time. The game wants him to be in the meta, so he is like a reliable champ.
100%. He's a staple. And Winston is kind of the same, but a very different play style. You know, he's got a very simple kit, and one that can get you killed really easily if you misuse it, which is kind of the learning curve there. But that's an important part of the game in general. You know, you have to learn how to survive. And I talked with you a little bit about this previously. That's one thing that I think can really set you apart in the game, is if you try to, if you focus on living and not getting into situations that are going to just get you mowed down immediately, it'll help you as you try to climb through the ranks and get better at the game. But yeah, Winston is, again, simple kit. He's got a cleave weapon, a big Tesla cannon thing. He's got a bubble shield that he can drop where he's at or in midair while he's jumping, and he's got a big jump to get in or out of fights and spaces.
And even his ult is simple. He gets a huge health pool, and he gets a melee attack that shoves people around. It's not complicated. Although I think it's interesting. I don't know if you agree with me on this. I think Winston has actually a high level of complexity as far as what you can do with him.
Yes, we can talk about that in another episode too, because really Winston is meant for like dive comps where you're coordinating with another teammate or teammates to collapse on a specific target, usually the support line, try to either just push them away from their team so they can't heal or even kill them, and then you're going to win that team fight if you take their support out. So there definitely is a little bit more planning, a little bit more thought that goes into playing him really well. But I think even at the intro level, you don't have to be doing those kind of plays. If you're playing with your team and helping your teammates out and them helping you out, that'll still give you a good sense of how the game works and how that champ works.
I completely agree. And I think that gets me into my tank suggestion. I would say if you're just getting into tank, if you're a new Overwatch player, play D.Va. I think that is the ultimate tank choice that you should pick up. It shares the same thing where D.Va is like amazing when you're just starting, and it's still very good like once you've played a lot of games. The biggest thing with D.Va, if you're first starting to play, is her ultimate ability. You are going to charge up her ult, you'll throw it in, it's a big self-destruct, and I remember when we first started playing the game, it felt like this is uncounterable. There's nothing you can do. When D.Va ults in, everyone on your team will die, and that's just the end of it. And now we play, and when a D.Va gets even a single kill with her ult, we're like, oh, hell yeah, D.Va ult, let's go. So at the beginning, you're going to get an extreme amount of value with D.Va just from her ult, just this big AoE explosion. And then once you keep playing her, she's like a good damage dealing. She's like a hybrid between a tank and a damage dealer. You have to be trying to hit people with your auto attacks because you have infinite ammo. You have to be spamming your shield. She has a defensive matrix which blocks all projectiles, which is low-key one of the strongest abilities in the game.
100%.
You can counter entire ultimates with just like a click of your button that doesn't cost you anything.
Yep. Yeah, and I'm still like within this past few months learning, how to use that defense matrix appropriately. It's like you're saying, you can have a really high skill ceiling with her, but the entry is nice and low too. And tying back to your first point of just fun and cool characters, yeah, it's a tiny woman in a mech suit just busting ass out there, mowing people down, launching a mech bomb as her ultimate. It's cool. It's just awesome.
Yeah, cute Korean girl who's in a mech suit who is like launching missiles, and like she launches it in, says nerf this. I mean, what's not to like? Like, if you don't like D.Va, you don't have blood in your veins, I feel like. So that's the tank role. So what do you recommend, Matt, for the support role?
So for support, I picked 2 as well. And both of these supports are low skill floor, but they're still used throughout all the ranks. And the 2 I picked are Mercy and Moira. With, I would say, Moira being the number 1 in my opinion, because with Mercy, you can enable your team really well, but at a certain point, if your team's not doing the thing, you can't really take the game into your own hands. She doesn't have her own way of really putting out damage well. She really can just
carry
heal
as Mercy, really.
Right. She can heal and she can damage boost someone on her team, but if no one on your team is doing damage, then she kind of isn't really worth it. But again, in lower ranks, especially with Mercy, you can literally just tie on to somebody, and if they're good at the game and carrying for you, you can keep them alive. You can amplify their damage and just win games that way. Moira is, I think, honestly, a higher burst output healing, which is really good for your teams, especially in kind of brawly fights. She has a great mobility tool. She's got basically a flash away. She just kind of fades out and then reappears after a half second or whatever.
And not only she has a great dash, but she's invisible while she's dashing, which is just crazy.
Yep, so she's just gone for a second, and then she reappears, and you gotta go chase her down. She's got basically equal healing and damage, if you will. You basically have one that sends out a healing stream and one that sends out a damage stream, or suck, if you will. Her healing output, if you use all your healing juice, you're gonna have to do some damage to kind of rebuild that back up. But ultimately, she can just be kind of independent. She can take the game in her own hands and adjust as needed with the team to help out where she needs to. So I've enjoyed playing Moira. I've played a ton of Moira, and I think that she's just a really good one that you can climb a long way with.
I would say that was your first main. Would you agree?
Yeah, definitely. I played a ton of her. I'm trying to think, because I've always been a tank and a support player, and on the support side, it was basically exclusively Moira for a long time, and then Baptiste came around and that totally changed. But yeah, I would say yes, she was my first main.
I think Moira is she has a very good, she's easy to pick up. She's intimidating because her auto, she has 2 different kind of auto attack styles. Her orb, which is one of her abilities, has 2 different modes, so it's intimidating. She has the mobility. She has a lot of things going on, But if you just jump in and play her, it will not take you long to pick her up. And she is very flexible. She can just be a hardcore healing support. You can just hang out in the back line and you will be as good as any heavy healer in the game. Or you can play a backline diving, like your team is not dealing with a sniper. You can pick up Moira, dive the backline, and just win the game by yourself by picking off the sniper. So I think she's a great choice. A lot of these champs we're recommending, they have like a really low barrier to entry. You'll get a very good effect just from knowing very little about them. And as you play the game more and more, you'll unlock more and more things that you can do with that champ.
Yep, I would agree with that too. It can be a little daunting, but at the end of the day, and we are console players, so I'm going to speak in terms of R1, L1, that kind of crap. But at the end of the day, it's everything on your R side is heal, and everything on your L side is damage. And you'll figure it out super quick that R1 is, heal orb, L1 is damage orb, R2 is healing, L2 is damage. Like, it won't take you too long, and she is, again, a wonderful champ to play through basically all the ranks.
Yep, completely. My support champ I would recommend 100%, of course. What would you guess?
I would guess Lucio if I had to guess. That was like the first support that you played. You played a lot of him, and he's the one who won us the game, who got the play of the game this week. So
I think he's still by far my most played champ in the game, even though I don't play him all that often. Lucio is just so good. So Lucio to me is the ultimate very high floor, very high ceiling champion. And what we mean by that is, if you come into the game and you don't know much about it, you will get a lot of value out of this champion, as in the floor is very high. Like, you come in and the floor is up, it's elevated. And then the ceiling is how high can you go. And Lucio can be very, very good. The reason he's so good when you first come in is because his core mechanics are he gives a huge stat boost just by being in the game, period. It's like in an area around him, but you won't be able to, like, if you were trying to avoid your teammates, if you were trying to avoid giving them stat boosts, it would be difficult. His aura is so big. He's giving either move speed boosts, which when you want to talk about the intangibles, move speed is huge in this game, or he's just healing everybody. Like, I pick Lucio when our team is not very high on healing. Lucio just gives huge amounts of healing for basically no... You don't even have to do anything. You're just walking around healing your entire team. And then his ult is you're shielding your team without really having to do anything.
Yeah, and his ult is a massive amount of shields instantly that kind of fades over a pretty brief period of time, which is awesome when it comes to countering enemy team ults. You can drop that right when an enemy team is about to throw a big damage ult on your team, and all of a sudden your team's all got however many thousand shield that they can survive that and continue the fight.
And that's the high ceiling. Like, when someone when they drop some huge ult and you counter it with the Lucio ult and give that huge shield. But I mean, to this day, when I'm playing the game, I will jump in and we're getting into a big fight, and I just drop it. Like, things are looking hectic. I'm going to drop the ult. And that works out great. And that's what you'll do when you're playing Lucio. Your ult will come up, you'll drop it, and that will be great.
I do like that you pointed out the intangibles as it relates to him, because you're right, that speed boost is huge. When you talk about pro play, that's why Lucio is played, not for his healing at all. He's played for his
That's the only reason you play him.
100%. And I think back to like Goat's era before roll Q. Lucio was on every single team, because what they would do is they would try to rush. They would time it with everybody on the team. We're going to speed boost. We're going to amp it right now. And we're just going to rush on top of them and beat the shit out of them really quick before they even know it. And people still do that today. It's kind of a different version since it's roll queue, but you can still plan that rush comp out and just unsuspecting teams get wiped.
Lucio is very unique, even still to this day. If I'm thinking correctly, he is still the only champ that gives move speed to allies.
Yeah.
As a League player, that is wild to me. Like, there are so many League champs that give move speed, but Lucio uniquely gives move speed to your allies and does it, like, across the board.
The only other, like, basically the game is invested heavily in the opposite of speed boost. It's like crowd control and slowing it down more than anything. Which is interesting. I wonder if they'll introduce any new champs or new abilities with champs that might do that in the future. Maybe Overwatch 2 will see something.
I mean, I'm sure, but as of now, I would be very confident saying if you want to just be a generically good support champ, Lucio is where it's at.
The other cool thing with Lucio, one last thing, is wall riding. It's you can just hold your button down. You can fucking cruise around on the walls and be above people and do crazy stuff and just go all red at Lucio on people and try to be totally on the attack and booping people. Which
and that's
is
fun. The high ceiling thing to me. Like,
yeah,
I think when you first play Lucio, you will not be like skating on the walls and booping people into pits and all of that stuff. You will just be generically boosting your team stats, which is great. And then as you play him more and more and learn the maps, you will become more and more effective, and you will eventually unlock the mode I love the most on Lucio, which is just dancing on the cart, being an annoying piece of shit, and just stopping the enemy team from doing anything because they cannot kill you.
It's always fun when that Lucio's on your team, and it always sucks when he's on the other team.
Yes, exactly. All right, do you want to jump into damage?
Yeah, this was a weird one for me. I haven't played a ton of damage. You know that probably my most time in a damage champ has been Ash, and that's probably been in the last year. Which is not someone who I would really suggest picking up initially. So I have 3, but I'm going to call them 2, and then I'll explain why. The very first one, which I think a lot of people would suggest, is Soldier 76. The game literally makes you play him as the tutorial, so you learn his kit during the tutorial. If you played other FPS games, his kit is really similar. The controls are pretty similar. So he's just a really easy one to jump in with. You can sprint around the map. You can shoot people with your gun. You can launch your rockets. You can heal yourself. He's a great, just self-sustaining and good for learning the game. So he would be my number 1, absolutely. And I would be interested to hear if he is yours or on your list or not.
He is. He's my number 1. I think he's generically good. There's a meme in the Overwatch community that he has the best ult in the game, which is when you ult with him, you just get a big circle on your screen. You just hold the trigger. Any enemy in that circle, you just hit for free. Yeah, he's just generically good. He is a jack of all trades. He does it all. Soldier 76 will never not be good, and he will likely be a champ that you can feel comfortable playing if you've ever played an FPS.
Yep, 100%. Yeah, his ult is funny because it's definitely not one of the better ones in the game as you climb ranks, but you can get a ton of value out of it.
It's never not good.
No, definitely not. And at a minimum, it's a good zoning ult, right? Like, that's what it turns into at higher ranks, is people hear, I've got you in my sights, and they hide. And that's what it should do. You know, it gives you time to push cart or clear cart, whatever. But yeah, lower ranks, where if people don't, if you don't have a BAP on your team with an immortality field, you're done for.
You're just going to lose, yeah. Like, very similar to D.Va. As Soldier 76 in early ranks, when you ult, you will get triple kills, quadra kills, like, for free.
Yep, 100%. So my other ones that I picked, and I'll be interested to hear what you have to say about this. I put Torbjorn and Symmetra together in this one because they're both turret champs. So it's basically like playing the game with another player on your team, especially early on. We still deal with this today in our games. Like, if your team is not dealing with turrets, you're going to have a bad time. You're probably not going to win because, again, the team has an extra player who's just shooting you for free and is taking the attention away from your team. So I think they're good cheese champs for sure, but it also enables you to get good game sense with them and understand how, with a Torb turret, you can put that on an off angle where your team is fighting here, and that turret is shooting them from another side where they really, it's kind of confirming for you, this is how our team should be doing these fights. Symmetra's a little different because hers are a little shorter range, but it's kind of the same deal. It just gives you a little bit more info on the fact that having this damage coming from multiple sides is winning you the game. And that I think is just an important concept in general. If you're playing damage, a lot of the times you should be looking for an angle that the team's not necessarily going to think of, so that you can put damage in. They have to focus on multiple things at the same time, and really make them think about what they're doing.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I could see why you were interested in what I had to say, because I don't know if I like, but I play both those champions, right? I play Torb, I play Symmetra, and we talk about, this is the intangibles, right? The things that don't make it on the board. When I play these champions, I always get these shameful accolades at the end of the game, which is like, you got 23 kills, 20 of them were your turret. You literally didn't shoot anybody. So here's what I would say about it. I would say it's worth playing these champions. You will get a lot of free games just by playing a turret champion, throwing the turrets down, and just getting free kills. Learn them, play them. I think it's a good idea to make the enemy team prove to you that they can beat the turrets. And if they can't, they'll lose for free. If they can, you need something else. So you can't depend on these champions, but they're a good tool to have in your pocket.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. And I think, generally speaking, if you play just Torb or just Symmetra, you're probably going to develop some bad habits or some bad sense of the game if you don't try to play other heroes at all.
Yes.
There's definitely going to be a cap to what you can do if you don't look at it from the perspective of other champions in the game.
Yep, I would completely agree. I have one last champ to recommend. This is by far my biggest recommendation. If you're just starting the game and just starting to play damage, play Junkrat. Play Junkrat, enjoy the free kills, enjoy his bombs bouncing everywhere. You don't even have to aim at anything. Throw that trap down wherever. Doesn't matter. Just throw it down in the middle of nowhere. Someone will run over it, and they will get screwed by running over the trap.
And it'll be me every time.
Yeah. You'll run into these problematic traps like Genji and Tracer, who are so tricksy, and they're dashing and flashing and rewinding and all this stuff, and then they hit the trap, and your team can kill them. And then even when you die, you can kill people. Your ult is one of these like Diva Soldier 76 ults where when you first start playing, you will just get so many kills because it's an AoE ult, and the enemy team, they're new players, they don't know how to dodge it. And you know what? Junkrat's still good. Like, no matter how high you climb, I think Junkrat's still solid. I don't think there's a point where he really falls off.
He's a great spam champ. So any map where you've got, you're just literally hucking bombs into a tunnel, like you can't go wrong with Junkrat. And not to mention that you can throw your little mines down and launch yourself across the map, or launch someone on the enemy team across the map.
He's got mobility. Like, that's the thing. He's got the high ceiling. Like, you can, like, I've played against Junkrats who just launch bombs and they win the game. I've played against Junkrats who are as mobile as any champ in the game. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So the Rat is a good call. He's just a good champ.
He was one of the early ones that you played quite a bit of too, right?
Yes. Yep. And I still play him to death. Yeah. When all else fails, you can Rat. All right. So I think that brings us to our main topic. I mean, we've barely started talking. What is it, like an hour into this game right now?
46 minutes, according to mine.
Okay. Well, you know what? I don't give a shit.
Oh, let's break it down! Why are you so angry?
So this is the breakdown. This is the main segment of our show where we talk about some topic related to gaming or just a game in general. And this week we are doing a throwback to a very good game, I would say. This is 3D Pinball Space Cadet, or Full Tilt Pinball, depending on how you played it. This was a package deal with Windows XP, and I think that it's interesting because I want to say everybody's played this, but Matt, you and I are old men, and maybe a lot of young people have not played this game or heard of this game.
Yeah, I honestly didn't realize that XP was the last. That was the last Microsoft computer that released with Space Cadet Pinball. So that was literally the first computer I think we played it on. Actually, it was released on some of the late Windows 95 computers, and then everything between there and XP. I guess we're old men, but the people that I associate with who are also old people definitely are aware of this game as well. I mean, when I loaded this up a couple days ago when I played, and the wind-up sound that happens at the beginning with a little like ching when the ball drops. Oh my god! Like I hadn't played this game in so long, but that just flooding back to me. It just brings me back to the den at mom and dad's, sitting at the computer playing pinball.
I think that's a good place to start. So okay, so our internet gaming journey, we got a Windows 95. That was our first PC that we had in the house. We had a pizza making game. I don't know if you remember
Oh my
that.
god! I think that was like a stock HP game or something, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was to teach you because maybe you don't know how to do this. But to click and drag, with a mouse is kind of alien territory. This is how old we are, Matt. They felt the need at this time, and they were right to include a game, quote unquote, where you make a pizza by dragging the dough and the sauce and the pepperoni and the sausage, and then you drag it into the oven to just teach you how to use a mouse and interact with the PC.
I mean, look how far that's gotten us today. Without that little game, we probably wouldn't even be able to use computers.
Yeah, that's why children don't know how to use computers today. But here's the thing, though. I mean, this game, 3D Pinball Space Cadet, was kind of born of the same thing. Windows 95, that era, wanted to have a game that showed off what a Windows 95 could do.
I mean, can you imagine if we played this game on the Windows 95, like when we were that young? And it would have been, I don't know how many years later that we played it on the XP, but like if we were that young on the 95 and we played it then,
we could have.
My mind would have been blown, I'm sure. I mean, it was anyway, but it would have been even more so.
Yeah, it was offered on like the Windows 95, like it was some addendum. Like you could order this software and add it on. We could have been playing this arcade pinball game on Windows 95 in 1995, which sounds bizarre because we played it in like, I don't know, 2000 when we got it.
I would think so.
Because mom and dad are frugal and they didn't buy a new computer until ours like turned into a stone just naturally, crystallized. All right, so let me ask you, what do you think of this game in general?
It's still a really fun game to play. I mean, I when we talked about this, when we decided we were going to talk about it, I looked up how I could install it on my Windows 10 computer, which was super easy. There was some, I think it was Groove Post or something like that, Groovy Post, that had just a link. You could download a little file. It installed in about half a second because it's a tiny old program. And then I was back playing pinball. It was amazing when I got in and started to play how much I remembered. So like even just the controls being like Z and backslash and spacebar, immediately put my fingers there, start playing. It's totally fine, ready to go. I remembered the skill shot at the beginning where you don't go all the way up to the bumpers at top. You kind of drop it short so you can score more points.
You don't charge that initial bump of the ball, so it just goes all the way to the top. If you get the first 3 bars, you get a free replay.
Yeah. The amazing thing to me after playing it several times is that like this is a pinball game, but it's kind of got a story to it. Like you're a space cadet. You can go on missions. You can kind of climb the ranks from cadet to, I forget what the top is.
Fleet Admiral.
Yeah, there you go. So you've got these like little mini games you're playing in there, upgrading your weapons, upgrading your engine. There's just all these little things that still tie into the idea of being a space cadet, which again, I just think that's super cool that a pinball game, which you could put 0 of that in there at all, had that going for it.
Yeah, I think to echo those sentiments, I think it was amazing to play. It was just the ultimate, like, you never forget how to ride a bike kind of mentality. So if you've ever played this game, which I'm sure a lot of people have, one fact I learned in researching this game, 3D Pinball Space Cadet has been installed on over 1 billion computers.
Wow.
Isn't that wild?
One of those computers being, this is a jump forward here, but a train station ticketing machine at the Chuzhou North Railway. So on September 4th, 2015, apparently a passenger went to get a ticket and it was displaying the full tilt pinball game instead of what it would normally be supporting. So you can install it on train ticketing systems.
Oh my god. Can you imagine going and seeing that? I would be transfixed. But yeah, like I also launched it recently and played it again. And the thing, it was like, we want to get back to the intangibles, the muscle memory, like remembering how to flick that left bumper as the ball comes on the left side to launch it up the launch tunnel back in and get that loop going, or up into the wormhole or the hyperspace on the right hand side. I couldn't believe that I could still do it. Mm-hmm. I didn't have to think about it. Like, how deeply wired, like, that's wired more deeply into my brain than people I've known in my life.
It just shows how much time,
I mean?
Shows how much time you spent with 3D Pinball Space Cadet.
Yes, but also it shows you, like, I mean, our brains are wired for physical dexterity. Like, that's what evolution has primed us for. And so when you start loading those things into your brain, it can really go a long way. And so I think it tells you, like, just putting in the time does pay off. You will remember things. Like, I mean, I think about just using a classic, console controller, an Xbox controller, or a PlayStation controller, and navigating a person in 3D. I can think about it so easily how moving my thumbs and fingers will manipulate the camera. And I have other friends in my life who didn't play games growing up, and it's the most alien, weird, frustrating experience ever. Just putting in that time gives you such leverage in these games.
It's funny too, the controller example in particular. I think if you asked me, like, I would almost have to have a controller and just do it to tell you how I do it at this point. It's not really a conscious thing. It's like, sometimes when I load up a character in Overwatch, I like try to think exactly about the buttons, and I can't. Like, I have to just sit there and play, and it all works together just fine. But like breaking it down and actually thinking about each individual action, just it doesn't work.
Absolutely. Like, Matt, right now, how do you launch Moira's healing orb on the PlayStation?
Good question. It's either L1 or R1, and then you hit R2. But yeah, I would need a controller. I need to sit there.
This proves my point, is that, and your point as well, that it's not about rote memorization. It's just about training your muscles to do the thing. When you're playing, you're not thinking, oh, it's hold L1 and then hit R2 and that's your healing orb. When you're playing, you just do it automatically. So I think, like, replaying 3D Pinball Space Cadet was just reinforcing to me how much investment you need to put in and how much you get out of just playing the game and training your muscles to do the thing.
Definitely. Do you remember, so when I played this game recently, I turned the music on, which rocked. It was great little 8-bit music. That was so fun. Did we ever listen to that when we played it at Mom and Dad's? Because I don't really remember it.
I definitely did.
Okay.
The music is very nostalgic for me, listening back to it. And I would just agree, like, the sound design in this game is so good. Like, when playing the game again recently, doing that skill shot at the beginning, like, not going all the way up, and you hit it and you get the skill shot reward, it goes, it's so good. It's so rewarding just hearing that sound. Just the details in this game are so good.
Yeah, I'd be interested to play the actual, like, full, because the full tilt arcade game actually had several pinball games in it, right? It wasn't just Space Cadet.
It was 2 other boards besides Space Cadet.
So I'd be curious.
By all accounts, from what I did not play it. By all accounts, from what I hear, Space Cadet is the best one.
Okay, gotcha. Well, I'm glad that they ported the best one.
I mean, it makes sense, but it's like the most focused, the least cluttered. It just looks the best. But yeah, it was a full game. You could buy a CD-ROM to play this game, and Windows purchased this one game to put out as a demo that was just bundled with Windows. And it was put out by Maxis, which I thought was interesting. That's a company we'll talk about in future episodes, I'm positive.
Yeah, once we get down to our Sim Ant and Sim Farm conversation, right?
Absolutely. One thing that was just striking me as I was playing it again for the first time in years is just, this was just a deeply satisfying game to play. It just feels good. And I don't know how much of that to chalk up to nostalgia and how much to chalk up to good game design. But in this case, I'm willing to say it's good game design because it's just a pinball table. Like, this game is satisfying in all the ways that pinball is satisfying. It's like the physics in this game, it feels really good. Like, you understand how this ball is going to operate on the table, and you get a good sense of it. Like, I never feel cheated by the game.
Yeah, same. Although, I don't know if you experienced this at all. On mine, the several times that I played, I think there's a bug where the ball would basically, on the left bumper, when I tried to hit it sometimes, it would just fall through. It would just disappear down through.
Oh, I didn't get that, no.
It happened to me like 3 times. So
I think I had a different emulator.
Like, you very well could have. Well, and that's the thing too. Like, we're not playing off the actual, original version, so I don't remember that ever being a thing.
The original didn't have any bugs.
Yeah. What was your best score when you played? Did you record it?
At 1.5 million.
Nice. I made it to 2.1. That was my max.
All right. I did look up the world record for this game.
Oh, yeah? That's probably something insane.
It's tricky because there are cheat codes, which I don't know why you would enter cheat codes in fucking 3D pinball for Windows XP. But as far as I can tell, the actual record is like 90 million points.
Jeez. I feel like you'd be playing the game for like a half an hour.
Yeah, it's like over an hour of playing the game and ranking up. It's no joke. I think it's awesome.
That's pretty incredible, yeah. What do the cheat codes even do? Like, what does it just set a border?
I don't know. I don't know. We can talk about cheats later in a different episode. I mean, there are all kinds of games where I don't know why you would cheat, but I especially don't know why you would cheat in 3D Pinball Space Cadet.
It's like cheating at Minesweeper or something. Like, what
it's
are
like
you
cheating at
accomplishing
masturbating. I wanted to bring up one last thing here when it comes to 3D Pinball Space Cadet, and I don't know if you encountered this in your research. I wanted to look up, has anybody made a physical 3D Pinball Space Cadet machine?
So I think I saw a little something about this, but I didn't read deep into it, so enlighten me.
So what I found is a YouTuber named Kyoto who was in the process of building a physical Space Cadet pinball cabinet. And the website still exists. You can go to spacecadetpinball.wordpress.com. It's a WordPress site, so it's ancient. And the last update was in 2012. And they were painstakingly documenting the process of building the cabinet. And there's a YouTube video, it's like 45 seconds, that shows a physical board. It's not painted, it's just like, plain, it's like cardboard, basically. But they have bumpers, they have the initial launch tunnel, they have all of the structure is there, and they have in the background, you can see the bumpers, the white circular bumpers with the blue centers and the red radial painting. And they're just playing, and it's all there. Like, it's all possible. Like, I was so tantalized, and there's nothing else. No one has made anything else besides this game, besides this initial version of this game. and I'm so upset.
And that's from 8 years ago at this point, right? 8 or 9 years ago at this point.
Yeah. I was also looking. I dove deep into some rabbit holes. There is, of course, r/pinball. You can go into the pinball subreddit, and people talk about this game, and they say they think physically it's not really possible because there are certain portions of the game, the digital game, that you couldn't actually fit all these components into. Like the top left portion, they don't think you could fit all this stuff into.
Gotcha.
But you know what?
The actual mechanics of it all wouldn't fit underneath or whatever.
I think that's limited imagination. I think you could do it. The thing I loved reading into this is I just stumbled into all kinds of great YouTube videos. A guy who had made a pinball table, and the bumpers were just screws with rubber bands stretched around it that would bump the ball. It was like a very low budget but very cool game. Like, pinball is cool. I think the reason this game is satisfying is because pinball is satisfying. Like, it's just a cool game. There's a reason that huge dorks and nerds will buy physical pinball tables even though they have access to all the entertainment in the world on consoles and computers.
I feel like encountering pinball tables in the wild is just so uncommon now. The only times that I've really played pinball in the past 8 years, there's an arcade bar in Chicago called Emporium where you can grab a beer, get some tokens, and they've got 6 or 7 pinball tables back there that you can play. And it is always like, it doesn't even matter. You can hop on the Jurassic Park one or like hop on. They're just all over the place with what they're styled after, and they're all fun.
They've all got Stranger Things one,
right? They've all got kind of unique mechanisms in them. You know, they're all different, and it's just something that we don't do very often, and is always enjoyable when I do.
I think what's special about 3D Pinball Space Cadet is that, unlike Emporium in Chicago, where, you know, I've played there once, I can't get a feel for what the tables are like or what the machines are like. You can play as many games of 3D Pinball Space Cadet as you want and get an actual physical feel for the table, even though it's a virtual one. And that, I think, is what makes it so special, is that we all have that same feel for this table. That's what's cool about it.
We've all played the same virtual table over the years. It's also one thing that I stumbled upon in looking at this, and I haven't looked because I don't have an iPhone, but I think there is a game for the iPhone as well. I downloaded a free Space Cadet pinball for my Android, and it is almost as satisfying as the real thing. It's literally just like the actual board from the game with updated graphics on top for like the ball and the bumpers and stuff. It makes it a little smoother. The text on top whenever you hit bonuses and stuff is better. But the game itself is literally just touch the plunger to launch it, and then you tap left or right side for your bumper, and you can play the exact same game. It was a lot of fun. I can't score nearly as well so far, but I think it's going to replace Solitaire as my like go-to game when I need something to do on my phone.
When you're on the toilet.
Yeah, exactly. Or on the train someday when I go back to work when the pandemic isn't ravaging our country.
Oh, man. And nothing's more intangible than the COVID virus. Get vaccinated, kids.
That's right. Do it. Do it for yourself and for everyone else.
What a great note to end episode 1 on.
That's right. You know, it's timely. It's important to us.
This is the Intangibles. We hope you enjoyed this episode. Please shout at us. We don't yet have a Twitter handle. If you go check it out, I'm sure you can find it. We are part of the Geekspective Network, geekspective.com. That's where you should go. I'm Kenny. That's Matt. Say hi, Matt.
Hey, Matt.
Say bye, Matt.
Bye, Matt.
See you next time. Bye.
Bye, everybody.